Hello guys, welcome to a new episode of Alternate Future. This is episode 7 I believe, and this is the Alliance Nat, as we are going to make a new alliance, which is, no, wrong layer, I was going to say, which is the Indian Alliance, between India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and what's it called, Thailand, which is to combat the Chinese alliance, which is not really threatening the Indians, but the Indians don't feel safe, I would guess. We also have a member leaving the Chinese alliance. Iran leaves, having repaired relations with Turkey and Azerbaijan, to then joining their alliance. Anyway, that is enough of alliances for now. Anyway, I don't know if I said this already, but South Africa, if it was annexed by the British, is now made into a dominion. However, if it wasn't, then I'm just wrong. Anyway, we have something happening in Africa. And I don't know why I turn off the alliance layer, because I need it. So, we have the orange team declaring war on the yellow team, which I'm going to quickly do off camera, just so you don't need to watch me sort out the colours. And anyway, I'll see you after then. It's here. I don't know why I turned off the camera, it wasn't really that long. But we shall continue. With the, I should pick the colours. Okay. With the Indians, well, I don't know why I said Indians. With the Nigerians invading into Cameroon once again, taking their capital within a matter of weeks. Also pushing into Chad, surrounding their capital before swiftly taking it another week later. Down south we have the Congo pushing up, meeting with Nigeria, cutting them off from the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, I think it's Atlantic. Also taking the Central African Republic's capital, and threatening the, South Yemen, why am I saying Yemen? South Sudanese capital. Anyway, they keep pushing up, mostly occupying all of Cameroon, before Egyptian troops do start to arrive. The Egyptian troops push in the north, which is kind of useless as desert, but for now they push up there, threatening to encircle the front line, which does lead to some Nigerian troops pushing back to go fortify the desert, which don't expect to have to do that. In the south, however, as Egyptian troops haven't arrived yet, the troops continue moving, eventually taking the South Sudanese capital and quickly occupying the region. However, there is another power in play here, which isn't going to join the war yet, but is going to start funding the Red Team, with promises of them taking some land after the war. I say some, but probably not some. Cameroon is eventually fully occupied, with the Central African Republic fully collapsing. However, the troops in the region do stay under Egyptian control. As the front line keeps pushing, a spearhead is made to this South Sudanese city up here. I don't know what's happening there, and I'll sort out maybe another time. However, wait, I don't know how I did that. The Egyptians do manage to retake the Chad's capital. Other than that, they are pushed out of the offensive up here, with them being fully pushed out of Nigeria, and then in fact invaded, which I haven't got the colour yet, invaded into a sort of revenge thing. The front lines up here are shortened with the push thing made. However, this is what we're going to leave it for now, as another event will occur. The unification of Europe will begin should all begin, New Zealand, with France uniting with Germany, leading to some other nations joining them, such as the Lowlands. I said the Lowlands. I'll sort out the capitals another time. But with the Lowlands joining, actually that's not the Egypt, Spain joining, and also Denmark joining, which I do believe is in the alliance. Yeah, just have to check. With efforts being made to unify with Bavaria and Austria, and some nations like Poland and Czechia. However, as these nations have just got independence, they want to keep their independence, surprisingly. I was going to unify Italy, then I remembered this Italy is not the one that's good, and this Italy isn't really close to them, so yeah. Anyway, that's war. As a push to retake the Chad capital is made successful, as I forget to change the tool, there we go. And another nation declares their full support of the red team, which is the UK, well, the English. With them clearly trying to take some lands to reform a certain empire, they still start sending full support to the red team, as the red team starts to see much more success. The Egyptians do send tons of troops down, however, the aid from England and the Nigerian and Congolese armies, which, bear in mind at this time, most of the diseases in these areas are sorted, as Congo is a lot more developed with a wider coast, and Nigeria was pretty fine already, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, if I got that wrong, well, let's just say they developed. Anyway, enough of me yapping, more war. We have this major city eventually being taken, with the front line starting to be widened, with the push secured. A certain nation is persuaded to switch alliances, which is, the Ethiopians will join, not switch alliances. Yet again, I forgot to change. There. I literally just sorted you out. There. With the Ethiopians joining to reclaim some of their lost territories. Good for them. Would help if I picked the right button. An invasion into Djibouti is made, with them fully collapsing, with the Red Sea Strait being under siege. I'm pretty sure that's Ethiopian. Well, it is now anyway. A push is made securing the Ethiopian border, as they aid the Dominican Republic's push. The Congo's push, I don't know why I said that. Eventually leading to them blocking off the Nile, which they don't have yet. They need to reclaim their dam. If I click the right layer. With them pushing up to the lake and somehow blocking off the river, showing how long this war is actually taking. It's been 2 years at this point, and this is how the front lines are. Yeah. Anyway, with the Nile starting to dry up, Egypt's at-home forces start to get a little annoyed. Which it shows with, let me size it up a bit, with the front line starting to collapse in the favour of the red team. With Ethiopian rebels starting to rise up in former Ethiopian territories, and also the army taking over Eritrea. Over here in Nigeria, which the borders haven't changed for a while, the Egyptians are fully kicked out of that area, the red team, as they fully occupied the Central African Republic, and also fully secure their borders, with Chad being pretty much crippled at this point. A push is made to this nature city, which is successful, which then follows up with a push to this nature city, which is also successful. As the Sudanese army starts to collapse, Libya does a smart thing and decides to get a separate peace deal, which is very good for them actually. They'll have some slight border changes, but not much. At this point, with Arabia being the only stable nation left, we have another nation joining. Yes, the British Alliance is joining. And as they join, it turns out their troops were already in Nigeria, Cameroon, and that lot. And I've also forgot to unsize the thinking bob. Anyway, as English troops start to flood towards the front line, it is over for the African nations at this point. And you can see this with Arabia being invaded in the south. Well, in Yemen, which goes extremely successful. As all of the front lines end up as the forces all end up in Egypt, the other ones in Arabia, it is basically game over for the Egyptians at this point. As the front line just keeps getting closer and closer to Cairo. Yeah, I'm just doing this because in real life I doubt this place will be taken. And probably not here either. Probably just follow up the Nile. But colour on that we look good. But anyway, as the front line keeps getting closer and closer to this nature city, it is eventually taken, leading to a spearhead to Cairo being successful, and these two areas fully falling under British control. But it's still international, as I'm pretty sure it wouldn't end up good for the British Alliance if they didn't make it international. Anyway, the front line, a naval invasion in the north is successful as well, as the forces, mainly British at this point, as the African ones are pretty good, pretty chill what they got, pushing into Arabia, starting several more naval invasions, until the Arabians get a peace deal off the British, which is like, if you give us these territories, we will let you keep these ones. Which the Arabians do accept, as you'll see why soon. With the leaving of the Arabians, the rest of that's Arabia, I'm pretty sure, but Jordan and Qatar is quick to surrender. Anyway, peace treaty time. The peace treaty is complete, with the dominion of Egypt being made, which you'll see why the British actually ended up with so much land after. We have up here in Saudi Arabia, where we'll begin. Saudi Arabia annexes Yemen, and however Kuwait, Qatar, and this part of Arabia are made into a dominion under the British, of course. Minor territories are returned to Iran, which does make the British Alliance look quite nice towards Iran, which does in effect make Turkey like the British Alliance more as well. In Africa, barely Egypt, we have Ethiopia pretty much just reforming Italian East Africa. Very nice, isn't it? We have a new nation being formed up here, which is mainly just like a puppet state of Nigeria, with some territories from Mali actually being put into this, as this nation is just mostly desert. That's why it exists, because they don't want to control it. Nigeria and the Congo split the nations here, with the border looking like this, with the Cameroon coast being split, Other than that, some other major things. We have the UK officially dropping their claim over Somaliland, and Nigeria under one condition, that they join the alliance. Which, if I set to the right layer, they do. If you also see up here, Arabia, the deal that the UK made with Arabia is that we'll let you keep quite a lot of your land and not turn you into a puppet state, and we'll let you join our alliance to protect you from outside powers. And in the future, if we go to war with, let's say, and Israel, we'll give you most of the Syrian land. If we go to war with Turkey, we'll give you most of Iraq. So and so. The peace treaty. Oh, I forgot to do Libya. Anyway, we're just going to say they got forced out of the alliance. I was meant to give us the desert. I just completely forgot. Anyway, we're just going to forget I forgot that. With the British alliance now being 90% of Africa, China and Europe start to get a little worried. Especially with the joining of Russia. With Russia, not the world. The reason being is that even though the UK and England did help with their collapse, the new government mysteriously turned very British orientated as soon as they got promised something. Wonder what that something was. Definitely not a return of the entire of Eastern Europe. But anyway, the British did actually use the chaos formed when while the Russians were still organising to install a leader that is in favour of them. And also the British do promise some mysterious, they promise some lands that are not specified, not told to the world, but basically it's just all former Soviet lands, which Russia does like a lot. Anyway, I'm pretty sure we'll call it the Neo-Axis or something like that, the New World Axis, I don't know. But anyway, the British Alliance is very big. Yeah, I said it again, just to emphasize, just to show how big it is. Anyway, another major thing that will happen. What was the thing again? Was it South America? That's it. With South America having the first war since the American War. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's just America, actually, in general. With Brazil declaring war on Suriname. The reason being is that the Brazilians don't want the English alliance to attack Suriname and annex them, which is actually a pretty good reason. The Brazilians basically go up to the Sudanese government saying, if we ally to you, the British will attack us. So if we just invade you and puppet you, there's less chance of that. The Sudanese don't like it, but they don't really have a choice. With Brazilian troops pushing up into Suriname and quickly capitulating them. Like I said, basically making them into a puppet state, or quote-unquote puppet state, which, which has which has the same government as before, which kind of encourages the British to go after Venezuela instead, which they don't want to do, but just putting it out there. Another event in America is actually the US persuading, re-annexing, I say annex like it's force, but reunifying with the this area here, which the British don't like, surprisingly, but they don't have a choice. They also later reunify with Florida, as I'm pretty sure Florida was forcibly, kicked out. I'm starting to think that they might have been a Caribbean Federation. There was, there ain't now. I'm sorry, this is really inaccurate. Anyway, events in Europe. We have the Nordics uniting into the EU. Or by Nordics, I mean Finland and Norway unifying with the EU. Also followed by the Italian nation down here unifying with it, and also Portugal. The EU has started to look more like a unified nation, unification campaign than an alliance at this point. I keep forgetting what I'm gonna do. Plan this all out, I keep forgetting. Oh yeah, that's it. I forgot. I planned it all out as well. China annexes North Korea, as they are pretty peaceful at this point. And that also means South Korea hates China now. I mean, they hated them anyway, but they hate them more. Which won't really do anything, as the English don't really have any, I don't know what to call it, ambitions in China. And that means they'll just probably lead South Korea and Japan to their own devices, which will not end well. Okay, the next thing, I was just thinking, if I didn't put it out, is Russia, not again the world, actually having a civil war. Because a lot of people don't actually want to join the English alliance. I need to sort out the borders, then I'll be back. I think this is like the 15th civil war of Russia that we have the Russians loyal to the Putin regime revolting away. As I don't know if I'm mistaking it for another video, I'm pretty sure I did say the Russians that didn't like the war did flee over to the Chinese border region. If I didn't, I guess it's just Beijing supporters. But anyway, the Chinese do heavily fund this rebellion, not wanting the UK to be more around their border, with Korea and Japan already being very close. And if the Russians join, then they have the entire northern part encircled. And they also have Australia there in mind, so not good. I'm going to do this very big, because Russia is big. Anyway, for the first weeks of the war, a lot of the Siberian region, the northern region, does actually fall under the rebellion's hands, with the UK mainly focusing on fortifying the main Russian regions, leading to these major cities over here falling over to the rebellion. I'm doing this very quick, mainly because we're going to go very small real quick. With the ice kind of just being occupied, not really rebelling away, saying there's barely anyone there. The borders eventually stabilised like this, a few weeks after the Civil War started, with the UK sending a message over to China, basically saying, stop aiding this this rebellion, or we will start to influence you. in the world stage, as we have very high connections with a lot of people. Until they realise that Europe kind of hates them because they're allied with Russia. Yeah. As China realises that they can kind of block off the Strait of Hormuz, as Iran's very friendly towards the British, and the British just straight up owns the UAE. They can also block off the Suez, as they own Egypt, and they can just plot there. Pick those colours. They can just put some boats there. Yeah, China is kind of forced by the British to stop aiding the rebellion. Now, as soon as the Chinese stop aiding the rebellion, the Russians start being very successful. It's like the rebellion was just Chinese invasion, just labelled something else. Anyway, eventually, I'm going to get to this point, the rebellion straight up collapses, and Russia fully takes them over, fully annexing them in the peace treaty. However, that was important, as this area will forever be extremely rebellious. Some minor border changes to China are made, mainly around this lake region, which I'm going to do on camera as it's very small, with this major city being put into Chinese control, and just like that. Oh, like the peace treaty. Basically just securing Beijing's want for the area. They started a civil war over this major city. Yeah. The last major event of this episode, which we're not going to actually do. I mean, we're not going to do, but this will start next episode, is the British declaration of war. Not on the world, I picked the wrong layer. On the, the Green Alliance, which was literally just made to combat their expansion, with them actually dissuading South Korea and Japan to join under the kind of like agreement that they will aid them in a future war with China if they do get declared on or declare on China. Yeah, I don't think the Green Team's winning this one. However, a new alliance does form. Does join, I mean, not form. Which is the Indian Alliance. As India wants to combat British expansion. As, if you remember, the British Raj was part of the British Empire. Which does also lead to Pakistan joining, and Myanmar, which are part of the Chinese alliance, but they join separate, as the Chinese alliance is more of a defensive alliance. As the realisation dawns on the entire world, which the British Empire is coming back, and coming back with a vengeance. It's shown when more nations join war. With Venezuela joining, and Papua New Guinea being kind of forced to join. As the war against the former British Empire territories begins with these, I'm just going to say all of the island nations, I don't know which one's British. Yeah. Next episode's going to be wild. So that's where you're going to end it off. So, if you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe. If you want to recommend ideas for this series, or any other series, or just ideas for a video in general, you can tell me, and I will most likely do it, as it's really annoying to come up with ideas, which isn't just the same format of nation comes back, nation expands. Like, for example, the Mediterranean video that I did last was kind of just me trying not to do a nation expands video. Not nation comes back video. Anyway, next episode's going to be wild. But anyway, have a nice day, and goodbye.